Thank you for being here. This is my first time as a speaker here at BC TechDays ever, so you might be witnessing something great for the future, I hope, at least. The session is called Your Microsoft 365 Account is More Precious Than You Think, but because I'm a new speaker, it might be appropriate to firstly introduce myself. So, my name is Kevin Rosendaal. I am from the Netherlands. I work as a technical lead consultant for a Business Central partner in the Netherlands called Bliss Software. I've been with the company for about 9 years now, doing everything from NEV 2015 implementations and development, as well as Azure with on-prem NEV hosting or Business Central hosting, as well as security the last couple of years. I also have a LinkedIn page. That's the only social media profile that I actively use, so if you want to follow me, go ahead. And you might recognize me from one of my side projects, which is bcstatus.net, which is where I monitor several Business Central environments for availability. So the goal of this session today, is to create awareness around account security in Microsoft Entra. We often talk about account security within Business Central itself, for example, with permission sets, but there's more to it. And I think with the shift we made from the on-prem world to Business Central Online, we have a shared responsibility to do this right. And also because more and more Business Central features are moving away from within Business Central towards Entra. For example, API registrations, app registrations are now done in Entra instead of what we had before with web service keys. Otherwise, the user groups are now moved towards the security groups recently, which is also an Entra ID feature. So this session is mainly about what Entra ID is, how it protects our data, what different types of attacks we can do in the Entra, and what protection methods that we can use. So, session timeline. First, we talk a little bit about authentication, which is verifying who you are to a system. The second topic is authorization, which is about what are you able to do within a system. And thirdly, user protection, which is about what add-ons you can use to help you protect your end users against potential threats. So first question for the audience. Who has ever configured an on-prem instance of NEV or Business Central before? Yeah, quite a few hands. You might recognize this. At some point during the project, we had to choose some sort of credential type, whether that was Windows or username when the customer was using an on-prem Active Directory structure, or access control service when it was Entra, or NAV user password when there was no identity provider at all. Now, Business Central Online is slightly different as it is Entra authentication only. So what is Microsoft Entra anyway? It is the identity and access management system, which is the core of authentication and authorization by Microsoft. So it's the single sign-on solution that you can use to log in to Business Central, to Outlook, to Teams, to OneDrive. Even external developers can implement Entra as an identity provider into their app, so you can use your account there as well. Now, some of you in the audience may be like, authentication, what is it all about? Well, it looks something like this, way back. So we have a username, we have a password, and then you are signed in. Now, for Microsoft partners, it might look slightly different because they are required to use multi-factor authentication. And multi-factor authentication is the way that we use to provide 2 or more verification factors, which has been around for a while. As I said, it's mandatory for all partners, and it protects very well against password-based attacks. So that means brute forcing. Microsoft's latest numbers on this at MS Ignite was announced that it protects against 4,000 plus attacks every second. It protects well against data breaches. I highly suggest taking a look at haveabeenpwned.com to check your email address, whether your account has been compromised in a data leak or not. And of course, it works against phishing emails or QR codes or something like that. Now, it's also the most hated security feature by end users because every company recommends their own app. If you try to enable multi-factor authentication with a Google account, Google really wants you to use their account, their authenticator app. If you do so with LastPass, for example, LastPass will recommend their own app. And even Microsoft does the same as well with the Microsoft Authenticator app. So for some of you, maybe in the audience here, your phone might look like this. Whose phone looks like this? Who has multiple Authenticator apps on their phones? Yeah, exactly. This made my point. So another difficulty is there are many different implementations. So Microsoft, for example, uses number matching for a very good reason that I will show later. There's the 6-digit codes that you can, that's time-based, and there are the approve, deny sort of structure. And there are the very old-fashioned SMS voice or email MFA features. Now, this is notable in the statistics because only 38% of the monthly active Entra ID users, that is both personal as well as business accounts for Entra, are using MFA at any time in the month, which is a very, very low number. So Microsoft decided to do something about this. They wanted to improve the number. So what they do, they created for Entra ID free users, they created a security defaults functionality that you can enable tenant-wide, which means MFA is now enforced for all users without any exception. MFA is required based on signals. So, for example, if you change location or device, you are required to use or to fulfill the MFA requirement. Otherwise, it will accept it anyway because they recognized you from before. And legacy protocols are disabled, such as SMTP, POP3, etc. Now, if you go higher up in the hierarchy, so if you have an Entra ID P1 license, you unlock a feature called conditional access. And with conditional access, you can create policies, and in those policies, you can create exceptions. So it's much more customizable than the free security defaults functionality is. You cannot combine those two, however, so you have to choose either between, do I want to implement a conditional access to enforce MFA, or do I want to use security defaults? There are policy templates available, which I will show you in a demo in a second, to get you started with this. So let's go to the first demo. Yep. So this is my personal tenant. As you can see, it's a Microsoft Entra ID free licensed tenant. I'm in the Entra admin center, by the way, which is simply entra.microsoft.com. And if we go to properties here in the identity overview page, we'll see that I have security defaults enabled for my own tenant. And if we to click on this button here, you can see that it is enabled and it protects against 99.9% of the accounts compromised that could be stopped by using MFA. So there's an option here to either enable it or disable it, and I'll leave it on. Now, in Entra ID P1, it's slightly different. I've got a P2 license here because this is a CDX environment which I'm going to use some functionality for later on. But as you can see here, I've got a conditional access policy enabled, so I cannot configure any security default policy here. So in order to enforce MFA within the conditional access policy, we go to protection, then we go to conditional access, and here we can create policies. There's already a standard or default policy enabled because this is a CDX environment and Microsoft enforces us to have MFA enabled by default, so I can't remove this, but otherwise in a regular production tenant this wouldn't be the case. So if we create a new policy, and let's call it MFA, and I've got a test user called John, so I'm going to call this MFA for John. And here we can create an assignment, so which basically means to what or to who does this policy apply to. So we can say, for example, we can include all users. So this is the flexibility. We can include all users, but exclude some users or some groups or whatever we think it's necessary to exclude. Or we can simply select the users that we want. So we can say, for example, John, hit select, and now this policy will only apply to John. Next, we have to specify our target resource. So by default, we can say include everything, exclude whatever we want again. And we can also say all cloud apps. So now it's applied to all Microsoft 365 services. We can also specify select apps. So for example, we can say this policy only applies to Microsoft admin portals, for example, but also specifically to Business Central, which is also an app in here. So we can specify which policies we want for Business Central, for example. In this case, I'm going to say all cloud apps because we want to apply to everything. Next up is network. So if we want to exclude certain networks from being in this policy, because for example, you have a static IP address in the office and you don't want to bother people with doing certain stuff inside of the office network, you can enable or disable it here. And next up is conditions, which you can specify certain device platform, for example, where this policy applies to. Next in the grant controls, we can then say we want to require multi-factor authentication. So we select multi-factor authentication required, enable, and then here is a nice feature where you can say, do we want to enable this policy and turn it on or off? But you can also say report only. So you can firstly view in the sign-in logs what is actually happening before rolling out the policy. So if we say on and we create policy, we should now be able to, if I take the second browser, it will now ask us for more information because that's what we require. And I have to, for some reason, when my laptop went idle, the connection to my phone went off. There we go. So now we can register the account for MFA. This should look familiar, hopefully. So we say, yes, we have the Authenticator app. Work or school account is good. So we go to my phone, open the Authenticator, hit the plus symbol, work or school, scan the QR code here. Click next, and now we should be able to number match. So 39. Next, done. Right, and as now we're signed in and we have multi-factor authentication enabled for John. So we are how many minutes into the session? Like 50 minutes or so. We have MFA enabled, so we're safe, right? Oh, sorry, I forgot to switch. So with MFA, we're safe, right? Well, not quite. Because password-based attacks are not the only threats we have in this world, unfortunately. There are also the MFA attacks and the post-authentication attacks. For example, with MFA attacks, we have SIM swapping, which used to be quite a big problem in the Netherlands back in the day. Famous people would get their SIM card swapped of their mobile phones. How did that happen? The attacker would simply call the phone carrier, tell them, the phone carrier employee, that they were the famous person, and the phone carrier would simply ask, what is your date of birth and what are the last 3 digits of your bank account number, and send them a new SIM card. So it happened quite often. Nowadays it's a little bit better protected, but it's one of the reasons why SMS or voice is no longer recommended as a multi-factor authentication method. MFA fatigue was a technique used to simply spam the end user until they hit approve. This is also the reason why Microsoft changed the implementation from the deny approve approach to the number matching approach. The third one, adversary in the middle, which is something I will show in the next demo, but it's basically a proxy between the end user, the target website, and there's a proxy sitting in between, which the attacker can intercept and take control of. Then in the post-authentication attack methods, we have token theft. Simply install a piece of malicious software on your notebook, and your tokens, which are stored in your computer locally, might get stolen and replayed by the attacker. And consent phishing is the one you see on the right here, where a malicious application would get access to your account because you simply approve permission to do so. So, what if we can combine those three methods into one attack? So from the password-based attacks, we take a phishing mail. From the MFA-based attack, we take the adversary in the middle. And from the post-authentication attacks, we take token theft. What could possibly go wrong? Eventually, in part 7, the website will return a session cookie, and we will be able to replay the token in a different browser, and you will see that we can take over the account. Now, a disclaimer up front. This is merely a demo of what a potential attacker can do. This is all open on the public internet. It's nothing dark web or something like that. But I wouldn't advise to do this on your friends or colleagues, for example. Let's see. So I'm logged in here as John, and we can go to his email. And there's this curious email of Kevin. And he forwarded an email from Peter, and Peter said, "Hi, Mr. Kevin, you can find the very confidential new business agreement at the following URL. Hope to hear from you soon." And John is a very naive CEO, so he clicks the link. And it looks like he's going to something that is the Microsoft login portal, so he enters his credentials because he's very curious about the new business. Even the theme changes, so that's even more convincing. He has to do MFA matching on his phone, so that's good. Stay signed in, yes please. That's very helpful. And then he gets redirected back to office.com. And he has no clue what just happened. And he might even do it again or contact Kevin saying, you know, I don't know what this was, but it's not really working. So what's going on here? Now, if we go to the attacker's point of view, let's see. I forgot to sign it in. I don't know, maybe it's not. So the attacker on his side of view, he has a Teams channel, which is very handy. He gets the notifications of the people who actually clicked on the link. So let's see if there's something in here. Two new notifications, okay. So the first one is the captured login information. So his password is apparently BCTD 2024 $. So that's already very helpful. But he has MFA enabled, so we cannot do a whole lot with this. The second notification here is quite interesting because this has the authentication cookies from the session that John just created in the Microsoft service. So if we close up this browser and start a clean one, I can go to portal.office.com. And you'll see I'm not signed in right now. We basically copy this string, get into the developer tools, and paste it in. And I want to allow pasting. Now I'll close this page, hit refresh, and I'm signed in as John. Now, John is a CEO with global admin permission, so we can actually go into the admin portal and to the active users, and we can create a user for ourselves. So, Peter attack, for example. That's all good. Next. So we can do basically everything, anything that we want. And give ourselves global admin, just for fun. So now we stole his account and we've created a new admin account to manage his tenant for him. So how did this work? It's quite simple actually. There is an Azure function underneath, so it's a serverless structure. And if I really go to the Azure portal with a different account, there's a function app here called BC TD with simply two functions, and underneath there is an application insight service attached to it as well. And if we go to the logs of the application insights resource, we can see if we run the traces, we've got both the captured login and the captured cookies again. So that's how this works. This is how we do the notification in Teams. Simply capture the information in application insights from the user and forward it back to another service. So how do we combat this? It turns out there are differences in MFA strength. So what we just did, what we just configured, so the default number matching is in fact regular MFA. So it's a password plus something that we have, like a phone, which we can use to do number matching on. The second degree is passwordless MFA, which is somewhat identical to the first method, except for the fact that we wouldn't have the password, which we didn't need anyway. So there's no improvement in that case. The third one is phishing-resistant MFA, and that's the interesting technology here. This contains, for example, Windows Hello for Business has this functionality, so you can use your Windows device with a Windows Hello compatible webcam or a fingerprint scanner or a PIN code. The second one is the certificate-based authentication, which is also device-based and working with a public-private key structure. The third one is a FIDO2 security key, which is something that I have physically here, which is a physical key that you plug into your computer with a PIN code. And the fourth one is the most interesting one, because this is the most recent development in Entra, which are passkeys, which I would like to tell about a little more. It's a new standard by the FIDO Alliance, and it's supported by many large companies. So Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, everyone is basically implementing this solution. And it's aimed to eliminate passwords. So no more usernames, no more passwords. It's based on a public-private key certificate structure. So the public key is unique for each. So the public-private key pair is unique for every account you have online. So and the public key gets stored obviously with the service. So if the database gets stolen or your public key leaks in a data breach, it doesn't matter because it's unique and it's not usable without the private key anyway. As I said, it's phishing resistant and it's synchronized between devices, unlike physical keys. So that's one downside of physical keys. And there's a public preview now in Entra. And if you want to learn more about what services support passkeys, you can go to passkeys.directory and you'll find many services. It's a relatively new feature, so there are not many services yet, but the expectations are that this will be a very big change in how we do authentication in the future. So let's register a passkey in Entra. What's this account? This is John, yeah. So in order to do so, we go to myaccount.microsoft.com and we go to security info. Within the security info panel, please. we hit Add Sign-in Method, and we choose for a passkey. Right now it's only compatible with the Microsoft Authenticator app, but I assume this will change in the future because a lot of password managers are already supporting passkeys as well as a storage option. Next. So what devices do we want to use? I have an iPhone here, so I'll choose an iPhone. This is something that you have to set up on your device as well, which I've already done. So in the Settings app, you'll go to Password Options, Passwords, and you'll select Password Options, select Autofill with the Authenticator app, which is this one. You cannot see it, and you set up the codes in the Authenticator app. So we hit Next, open up the camera. Okay, I understand. So we'll scan the QR code, and then it says Save a passkey. So that's what I do. Hopefully. Right. Do I want to create a passkey for John? It'll be saved and available on devices where Authenticator is installed. Continue. Hit Done. And there we go, we've got our first passkey installed. So now the authentication flow looks a bit different. So if we try to sign in now, we have to explicitly tell the system that we want to use a passkey. So we choose sign-in options on the bottom here. Then we go to face, fingerprint, PIN, or security key. Then we choose use a phone, tablet, or a security key. And then we get this QR code again. So get the camera, sign in with a passkey. Then we can choose what account that we want, because I've got 2 passkeys configured on this phone. And that way we can sign in without entering a username or a password. So if we try the same trick again that we did before, or not. Oh, that's interesting. Right. If you go to sign-in options here, you will notice that the option isn't here, which is basically the part where the URL doesn't match the technology that is implemented here, and it's simply not showing up. That's what makes it phishing resistant. All right, so a short recap on authentication. So it's verifying who the user is. Token theft can still happen when you are using less secure multi-factor authentication methods, and strong authentication methods are either Windows Hello for Business, certificate-based authentication, FIDO2 security keys, or a passkey. And you can use a combination of those, of any of those, together. So for example, on my work laptop, I use Windows Hello for Business, but I also got a physical security key, and you can use them in different ways. So this is already a good start. But as you may have noticed, I've created a new account because John was a global admin. And we should ask ourselves, why is John a global administrator? Because token theft, even though we have configured a phishing-resistant MFA method now, it's still a possibility because local admins are always vulnerable to malicious software, as I've mentioned earlier. So we should apply the principle of least privilege, which means we should revoke unused access. So if John is only doing some user administration, he shouldn't be a global admin. Instead, we should configure reducible access. So we should configure John to be a user administrator instead and enable just-in-time access, which means if John wants to, if John is not doing user administration all day, every day, he shouldn't have that permission. He should only have this permission if he wants to create a user right now for a certain amount of time. And this is also a nice way to monitor and audit access between those different privileged roles. So in order to accomplish this, we have a nice feature in Microsoft Entra, which is called Privileged Identity Management, or PIM for short, which I'm going to show you now. So I'm going back to Entra. And this is a P2 licensed functionality, by the way. In Entra, we go to Identity Governance, and then we can go to Privileged Identity Management. And from here, we can configure different functionalities. So first, we can configure Entra roles. We can configure groups, which are security groups. And we can configure Azure resources. But before we're going to do that, I'm going to remove the admin rights from John first. So he has an assigned role, which is the global administrator. And I'm going to say remove yes. So now, let me show you how to configure an Entra role, for example. So if we want to manage an Entra role, we can click on Entra role, and we can show the roles that are available to us. For example, we take Business Central Administrator, which is one of the new Entra roles that are available to us. And then we go to Settings. And this is where we can configure all kinds of interesting things. So, for example, we can specify how long a certain role can be active at a given time. So if we say, for example, 4 hours, this means if I activate it now, the role can only be available for a total amount of 4 hours, or shorter if the user specifies so. We can say on activation, do we require something? For example, we can enable Azure multi-factor authentication if we want, or we can enable conditional access authentication context, which is a pretty neat feature that you can combine with conditional access policies, which I will show later. If you want, you can require a justification for activation, or something like ticket information. So if you are working for a certain customer and you want to provide a ticket number giving the reason why you are accessing their environment, you can do so. And if you want, you can even require approvals before activating. So if you want to have a 4i system where someone else approves your request instead of enabling it without checking with someone else, you can disable this. But this is a nice functionality if you want to have approvals as well. And we say next, and this allows us to set the if the permission, or if it can be permanent or not. And eligible means can someone be permanently eligible to get a certain role, or do I want to limit a certain time? And active assignment is basically what we had before, the situation where the assignment is always active, or it can expire after a certain amount of time if you desire. We can still require MFA if we want on active assignments, and of course we have to give a justification if we set a permanent or if we set an active assignment. Then there are some notifications that we can send on all kinds of roles, which I'll leave the defaults for now. And then we say update. So now we can assign a user to a certain role. So if we say add assignment, we select a member. We can say John, for example, and hit next. And here is the assignment type again. So if he's active permanently, and if he's eligible, then he can activate when he needs it, which is the preferred way to do it. And then we hit assign. So now John is eligible to become a Dynamics 365 Business Central administrator, but that obviously doesn't work out of the box. So if I now turn this side by side, so on the left side I've got my admin sort of view, and on the right side is my John view. So if we now go to businesscentral.dynamics.com/admin, this shouldn't work, because even though he is eligible to be a Business Central administrator, he is not right now. So in order to become one, he has to go to entra.microsoft.com, navigate to Identity Governance, Privileged Identity Management, and then we choose Activate Just in Time. And here we can see what access we have, and there is the Business Central admin again. So we can hit Activate. This validates the request, and we can set a duration, or for a maximum of 4 hours, which is exactly what we have configured. But in this case, I only want it for 1 hour, which is fine. And if we want a custom activation time, so you say, for example, I want to be able to do this at 6 o'clock in the evening, you can activate it in that point in time. The reason is a demo, obviously. And then we can hit Activate. Now, sometimes with activating roles like this, sometimes it works immediately, and other times you have to wait a few seconds, or a few minutes rather. So hopefully it will be quick today. Right, so as we can see now, we have now an active assignment as well as the eligible one. So let's go to businesscentral.dynamics.com. Let's see if it works now. Yeah, so now we do have the permission and we can access the admin portal. There's something else that I want to show you, which I cannot do in this demo environment, but I've prepared a video for this. So the way this can also work with, for example, accessing customer environments. You all might know or may or may not know that we can access customer tenants using granular delegated admin permissions. And in order to do so, we have an admin relationship, and to this admin relationship, we link a certain security group. And privileged identity management also works with security groups. So if we create a security group, we make people eligible to become a member of this security group. We can also make sure that our users cannot simply go in any environment without doing this kind of authentication before, which I hopefully, if this works, I'll have a video of it. So this is a security group called BC TechDays demo, and there are no direct numbers assigned to this group at this moment in time. And within the privileged identity management submenu, we see that the BC TechDays user is eligible to become a member of this group. So within the partner center here, we have a customer called Bliss Software Test. And Bliss Software Test has an active admin relationship with our tenant called the Bliss 365 Test Consultants. And to this, we can see we have the Dynamics 365 Business Central Administrator role enabled with the security group together. So now, if we if we try to access the customer's admin portal now without enabling or without becoming a member of the group, you'll see that it won't work. As you can see, we have no permission because the user does not exist in the partner tenant, which is fair enough. And if I now activate just in time by navigating to the user group, or the security group rather, and I'll activate the permissions or becoming a member. Sometimes validating the request can take some time, but eventually it will work. So now I am a member of the group, and if I try to access the same URL, so the same Business Central admin center in the company's in the customer's tenant, sorry, then you can see we can access it through the delegated admin permissions. So recap on authorization. It's about what a user has access to. And with privileged identity management, you can reduce access to admin resources or other resources if you want to. Just-in-time access ensures permissions can be granted to a user when it's necessary, but only with phishing-resistant MFA. And this is something that I haven't shown you yet, but I will do so after this slide. Time-based access ensures that permissions are revoked when expired. So let me show you how you can enforce phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication real quick, because I forgot to do so. So if we go to Entra again, navigate to protection conditional access, we can configure a authentication context in here, which is nothing more than just some name. It doesn't really do anything by its own. So if we say, for example, here a strong MFA, for example, and we save this, you'll be able to configure a conditional access policy with a target resource that's applied to an authentication context. So here's the strong MFA again that we've just created. And if we save this and we go to grant, we can, if we disable the standard require multi-factor authentication one that we did before, we can select require authentication strength. And here we have the options multi-factor authentication, which is the default, passwordless MFA, or phishing-resistant MFA. So if we do it this way and we save this, we have a policy that we can apply to, if this policy is being used, it will require us to use strong MFA. And the way we configure the conditional access policy and tie it to the PIM role, we can go to the PIM roles again, to the management of it. So if I do this to global admin, for example, if we hit settings, edit, we can, on activation, require the same conditional access authentication context that we've seen before. So if we configure it this way, and I'll add John to the user list, John won't be able to activate the global admin permissions unless he has authenticated himself with strong MFA. So if I now try to and this might work because we just did so, but eventually it should. It will give us a notification here where it says a conditional access policy is enabled and may require additional verification. Click to continue. So here's the additional step that we have to do in order to get the permissions that we've asked for. Third one, Defender for Office 365 is a very helpful tool to protect your end users from all kinds of malware, phishing, and spam in email or in Teams. And it's enabled by simply flipping a switch. It blocks email based on IP or domain reputation. Zero-hour auto purge is quite good for those scenarios because malware that's actually delivered into your inbox can be removed if Microsoft decided that it was malware or phishing after all. And it also contains content filtering, such as save attachments in Outlook and in Teams, but also in OneDrive, and it contains save links. So what this does is, if you click on a link in an email or in Teams, it will scan the link first, or the attachment for that matter, before actually giving you access to it. And another very nice functionality of this add-on is that you can do attack simulation and training for your end users. So I've got a small demo of an attack simulation. So what we can configure, and this is within a different portal. This is in security.microsoft.com. Hopefully. So in the bottom here we have email, and to show you real quick how easy it is to set up the threat protection policies, it's basically going to email and collaboration, policies and rules, and then clicking threat policies, preset policy, preset security policies, and simply flipping the switches here, depending on whatever you like. So it's very easy to configure once the add-on is in place. Attack simulation training, we can create a new simulation, and the goal of this is to create user awareness for all kinds of scenarios that you want. So, for example, if you want to train your users on not clicking on a phishing email, you can send them a fake one in order to train them afterwards if they have clicked the link. What to look out for. Look for the domain name, look for recipient, or look for the sender, for example. And we can create a new simulation here. There are different techniques available. The most useful, I think, is the credential harvest, because this is actually a simulation where the user has to enter his or her credentials into the system. But there are also different ones like a malware attachment, and link in attachment, and link to malware, and etc. So if we go for credential harvest in this demo, and call this demo as well, we have quite a few payloads available that you can choose from, or you can decide to create your own payload if that's what you, if that works for you. So to give you an example, so there's, for example, the reset password one. So then the user will receive an email with hello username, password for email address expires today, marked for deletion if not confirmed today, change or rather keep using the same password. Then there's a button where they have to sign in on the website. Yeah, for this demo we can take the same one. So we take the reset password one. There's a login page attached to it, which also looks like the Microsoft login portal. And we can see when the simulation was launched last, but obviously there's none of this one. So we can take the reset password and hit next. Here we can include or exclude the users that we want to test with this basic test. So for example, we can say John again here. There he is. Add one user. Next. And then we can exclude some target users of the simulation if we like. And then we can assign training. So for when John clicks the link, he can automatically be advised to do some training. And the training is usually a video of someone explaining what a phishing email is and what to look out for. We can do the recommended one, and they will assign trainings for you if you like. But you can also customize this the way you desire. So we hit next. Then we have a custom landing page. We can choose different landing pages. You can customize them with your own logo if you want. It looks a little bit like this. If after they've entered their credentials, you get a message like, "Hey, username, you were just phished by your security team. It's okay. You're human. You'll learn from this." And there's as well there's the tips to identify phishing messages as well. So in this case, it's the from and the subject. Here we want to see the notification preferences for this campaign. The default is usually good. So you get feedback whether you did good or whether you did bad. So if you report a phishing email before clicking the link, you'll get a notification saying, you know, well done, you spotted a phishing email, keep it up, something like that. I have to select the language. During is fine. And how often you want, this is for the, once you get a training assigned, you can here specify how often you want users to be reminded of the training that they have to follow. Then we can say launch as soon as I'm done, which is good. Next. Submit. So now if we go to the Office portal to Outlook here, we should receive an email soon. Come on now. There we go. So there is the phishing email, and if we click the link, we'll get redirected to something that looks like a Microsoft login portal. And it actually doesn't matter what you do here. If you click next, you'll see that it simply continues, and if you click sign in, I think you're getting phished. So it doesn't matter what the user enters here, but it's likely that they enter the actual username and password when doing this. So from the simulation, from the admin perspective, we can see what users clicked on the what users clicked on the link, which was inside of the email. And apparently, we have to wait for it now. There we go. So we can see what users were compromised with this simulation. We can see how many clicked the message link. We can see if they supplied the credentials. We can see how many read the message. We can see deleted, replied to, forwarded, who was out of office even, and also who the user was. So we can see click the message, read the message, etc., supplied credentials, and so on. Now, I've did this before, apparently, with this account, so hopefully I can show you what the training looks like as well, because it might be in the deleted items here. Yeah, it's in Dutch, but it doesn't really matter. So we can click on the link that we got assigned for us, and we can see there are two of them here, so internet phishing and mass phishing. If we click the internet phishing, we'll get a nice video of someone who is getting phished apparently, and what to look out for. So you might be wondering, what does it all cost? Security defaults is obviously free because it's in the Microsoft Entra ID free package. Conditional access policies are part of Entra ID P1, which is a €5.60 a user a month subscription, or comes with Microsoft 365 E3 if you have an enterprise subscription. Privileged identity management is part of Entra ID P2, which is €8.40 for each user a month, and is included in the Microsoft 365 E5 enterprise subscription. All the Defender for Office 365 capabilities are available for €4.80 for each user a month, or 70 I see. I think I made a typo there. So there's one more thing that I want to talk about, and apparently I have a lot of time left. We share secrets, whether that's API keys or whether that's passwords, but how do we share them with partners, or how do we share them how do we ask a customer to give us a certain secret? How to do it safely? My advice is always never in ticketing systems, never on email, and never on Teams, because it's uncontrollable if you paste a secret on one of those platforms. I would always advise to use a one-time self-destruct solution to simply enter your password once, then share it via a link, and if the link has been opened once, the secret is automatically deleted from the system. So the user has a chance to, or the partner or whoever is receiving the link has one chance to save it the correct way in a password manager, for example. So last year I came across a solution called YoPass. It's very simple and easy to set up. You can do it in a Docker deployment. It's like 15 minutes and you're good to go. It's by a software developer from Spotify, and it's also trusted by Spotify. So I'll show you that last, and then we'll head off to the beers, I guess. I to the Q&A first. So this is it. It's fairly simple. The idea is that you can write a secret message, and you can say how long it will stay there until it gets automatically deleted. So you can say, for example, 1 hour, 1 day, or 1 week. And you can specify whether it's a one-time download or not. And also you can generate a custom decryption key if you like. So if we say, for example, BC TechDays, secret, and we say this is valid for 1 day, but it's a one-time download, we can encrypt the message. Now we simply forward the following link to whoever is to receive the secret from you. You can open it once, there's the value, and if you open it again, it is gone. That's how easy it is. And this helps, I think, with secrets just flying around on every platform that you basically don't want to happen. Because sharing secrets is secrets in the open is almost as worse as secrets in the code. So I've got 28 minutes for Q&A, which is quite a while. So are there any questions in the audience? Someone up front. I've got T-shirts. Do you have a T-shirt? I was told there was a box somewhere, but where is it? Ah. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you for the demonstration. I have one question about what are your views on creating separate accounts for administrators?
That's a very good question. The downside of account sharing is always that there are shared accounts. So one of the possible issues is licensing, obviously. So when you have multiple Business Central accounts in the customer tenant, for example, you need a license to access the environment, or you need some kind of Dynamics administrator role within the system. So I would always use just the same account, using the partner benefits that we have, or the admin relationship that we can set up with one of the customers. That would be my recommendation, because it's a lot easier to connect with other environments with your own account rather than with a different account every time. Any other questions? I've got 2 more T-shirts. I want to get rid of the T-shirts.
You showed that you saved the passkey before on your computer, and you said they are synchronized also over different hardware or systems.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone gets the hand into your password manager, then he has the keys to the kingdom. Isn't it like that? Is it better to have the passkey also saved with an MFA to prevent that? Is this possible?
I don't think it is. I don't think it is possible. But the idea is obviously that once you have your passkey saved within a password manager, that the password manager is your secret. So, for example, when I showed you cannot get in the authenticator, for example, without using Face ID. So that's the second factor that you are using at all times. So without my face, the authenticator app wouldn't work. So that's the idea behind it.
But if it's shared, if you share this over different devices, then the data itself is not only on your device. So it must be on a server somewhere, and if you have a breach like LastPass for two years ago,
only has the public key in the passkey structure.
Okay.
So there's nothing more than a public key. And how it cryptographically works, I don't know, because I'm not smart enough for that. The way both devices require an internet connection, that's one of the things. And by scanning the QR code, somehow they are able to make a connection between the two. And your phone is actually confirming that you are who you say you are, in this case, at least. There are other ways as well with physical security keys rather than a phone, which work in a similar way, but those are protected with a PIN code instead of the face of your face.
Okay, thanks.
Do you want a T-shirt?
I'll take it.
I come all the way up. It's a nice exercise. There you go.
So could you elaborate on or repeat the example that you did with when you grab the cookie information to have the Microsoft session open?
Do you want to see it again?
Yeah, like it went a bit fast for me. How did you open the console and?
So the idea is that maybe I'll just show you the source. What is it called again? Azure AITM, I think it was. Yeah, it's by this guy. So this is the source for the Azure function. You simply clone the repository and publish it to an Azure function. That's how easy it is, basically. And how this is done is actually pretty well documented in his blog post here. So you can see, select the subscription, select Node.js as runtime stack, select the region, consumption-based is enough, and then simply push the Azure function, and then you are good to go. So simply, it is the Azure function is nothing more than, I'm making typos already. This is nothing more than a proxy between the user trying to sign in into his Microsoft account and the Microsoft website itself, or the login portal itself. So we're sitting in between right now. So every request that I'm doing right now is going to the proxy, and the proxy forwards it to the Microsoft login portal. So this is not some sort of fake portal. It's the actual Microsoft portal. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to get the theme out of it either. So if I do this again, I'm not sure if is the password correct? Yeah, that's it. So now we get the number matching. '63. And in the background, all it does is log the credentials that I got from the Microsoft service into the console of the Azure function. So when I moved back and the output of the Azure function is also pushed towards Teams. That's why it's in Teams right here. So it captured, then it was able to capture the login name and the password and the cookie that we got from the Microsoft service. And now I can basically copy the content of this post. Then simply navigate to the Office portal without any credentials, because there are now no cookies because I'm incognito. And then I go to the page inspector of the browser. So this is all local. And then if I try to paste what I got here from the Teams post, a warning appears telling me that if I don't be careful and I know what I'm doing, I have to type allow pasting first before being able to paste, actually. And this simply sets the cookie. So now there are no cookies, which is in, where is it again? Application, I think. Yeah, there are still cookies, but not this one. So now the cookie has been set for the specific Microsoft service. And I simply have to refresh now, and it will recognize that this is a cookie, this is a valid cookie that we have just created, and forwards us to the portal itself. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, very good. Thanks.
I'm going to give you the last T-shirt.
If there are no more questions, may I ask another one?
Sure. I've got no more T-shirts, though.
Not sure if this applies, but I'm going to throw you the question and see what you can make of it. So we have a Business Central client in BC 14 on premises, and they were in Windows authentication, and they wanted to have the multi-factor.
Yeah.
So we were trying to move them to single sign-on, and eventually left it because we were not able to connect it to the Azure app that they needed to register. I have done it in other BC 14 customers, so it could be just a mistake. We left it because there was no time, but there was one thing that we noticed when we reviewed their Azure application. I'm not sure what I'm speaking about here, but the other installations I worked in were SAML, and apparently this was OIDC. So we were kind of blaming that because what happened is it was not able to reach to find the application when it tried to authenticate. So I don't know. All I could see is, okay, this is different. This is probably the reason why it's not being able to connect with Business Central.
So you went from Windows authentication to access control service?
Yeah, that's it. Yes.
And that didn't work.
Yes. It could be a wrong parameter somewhere, but we noticed that the way they built the Azure apps had this difference with other installations I had done before. So I don't know if there could be maybe an incompatibility between Business Central not being able to get to this application because of this difference of some sort of security setting, not using say SAML but using OIDC. I don't know.
Honestly, I'm not sure, to be honest. I've done it. I've done the access control service implementation on-prem only a handful. I think like 4 to 5 times.
Same here.
Which is quite a long time ago. It was in the NAV days. So I'm not sure what was going wrong there. No.
Yeah. Okay. That's okay. Thanks.
All right. So if there are no further questions, I wish you all the best for the rest of the conference, and thank you for being here today.